brother Khallid Abdul Muhammad has seized upon his monumental mission with vigor and enthusiasm, and the result is a fiery oratory that leaves none who hear the message unchanged. He is the former Associate Director of the Urban Crisis Center. He is a scholar, a historian, an orator, an activist. He has taught in the Pan-African Studies Department of California State University at Los Angeles, California State University at Long Beach, and has served as scholar in residence at Morehead State University. He was a recipient of a fellowship to do intensive studies at Harvard, Yale, and Columbia. He has had first-hand experience, has seen with his own eyes, and has lectured in every major city, town, and township in South Africa on liberation. Because of his love and dedication to the liberation and salvation struggle of the downtrodden, the grassroots, the street gangs, and the black masses in general, he is loved and honored for his strong, bold, uncompromising, principled stand the world over. You can hear him on the world-famous popular rap group Public Enemy's album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. The rap artists have gravitated toward this brother. X-Clan, Sister Soulja, and others. He asked that we let the young people know that you will hear him on Ice Cube's new release, Lethal Injection. Brother Muhammad is also the former minister of Mosque number 7 in New York City. For those of you who may not be aware of the significance of that, that is the same mosque that was ministered by Malcolm X and was ministered by Minister Louis Farrakhan. Without further comment, I would like to present to you Brother Khallid Abdul Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. I bear witness that regardless to land or label or language, there is but one God. And so in the name of that one God who came as it was written and prophesied that he would come, to seek and to save that which was lost. His spirit, his power, his force came in the person of one Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, to whom praise is due forever. And we forever thank him for raising up his Messiah in our midst, that little black man from Sandersville, Georgia, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But if I live to be 1,000, or if I don't quite make it just to 1,000, if I just live to be the ripe old age of Methuselah, I will forever and eternally be grateful to Almighty God Allah for the man who is my spiritual father, the man who I love with all of my heart and all of my being, who is my leader, my teacher, and my guide. And in case you're interested, there is no split, there is no division. I accept his judgment as any good son would do. I accept his disciplining of me, and I speak of none other than the man who I believe is the champion for the liberation and salvation of the black nation, for the resurrection and rise of the black nation, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you, my beloved and beautiful sisters and brothers, with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. Malafia. Free the land. Badigani. What's up? It is indeed my honor to be here at Kent State University and to be the guest of these hard-driving spiritual warriors and cultural soldiers of black student unity on this campus. And let's give them a hand here this evening, the black student unity at Kent State University. You find a brother every now and then hanging with them who's a strong brother when you find one with them. But for the most part, black student unity is black women on the front line. They're sisters, but they're soldiers. They're ladies, but they're leaders. They're women, but they're warriors. They are female, but they are fighters, and we thank Almighty God for them. I want to begin by reading the Kiapo, the pledge, Kiapo in Kiswahili, meaning pledge, given to us by Dr. Maulana Karenga, who gave us the Nguzo Saba and who gave us Kwanzaa. Our unity in sisterhood, brotherhood, and struggle is profound, principled, and forever. Our struggle is constantly and continuously against the oppressor and against all in us, which is in contradiction to our values and the choice we've made. We choose the liberation of our people as our life's goal and struggle as the method to achieve it. Our choice is conscious, full, and free. We accept all risk and welcome all reward it brings. We have nothing better, more revolutionary or rewarding to do with our lives than to struggle. Struggle to bring into being a new world, a world in which we, our children and our people can live and love and create freely and stand and walk in a warmer sun. We are gathered here to celebrate the best in ourselves. They call this Black History Month. Isn't it interesting how white folks give us 1 month, short month of the year to study our infinite history when we must study 12 months out of the year, their moment in time. Brothers and sisters, every month is Black History Month. Don't let anybody confine you to the month of February. Let me begin by saying I have not come to Kent State University to teach black people to hate white people. But I did come to Kent State University to teach black people to love your black self. That's what I'm at Kent State University for. All praise is due to Allah. I did not come to speak some words, some magical words, some hocus pocus, some Shazam, some cadabra words that all of a sudden, by waving a magic wand or a magic microphone, is going to make black people start hating white people. I'm not that silly. I'm not that shallow. If all white people have done to us for 400 years and 6,000 years have not made us hate them, no words could make us hate them. No words could make us hate them. All praise is due to Allah. Praise be to Allah. To the whites in this university auditorium under the sound of my voice, 6,000 years, 400 years of slavery, suffering, and death, misuse and abuse and oppression, 400 years of this. I must say to you here at Kent State University, to the whites under the sound of my voice, you have nothing to fear from me of hate. It is you looking in the mirror that you must take a careful look at yourself here tonight. And I came to Kent State University to hold the mirror up in front of your face. I came to strip you buck naked, and I won't leave you with a stitch to hide behind. I will not leave you a stitch to hide behind. We sing the song in the church, I went to the rock to hide my face. But even the rock was crying out, ain't no hiding place. Ain't no hiding place. The Bible says that the bed is too short and the cover is too narrow. Ain't nowhere to hide tonight. But to the whites who are in the audience and under the sound of my voice, what you must understand is that we could never quite treat you the way you have treated us. God just didn't make us that way. It's not in us to treat you that way. God did not make us that way. God did not make us that way. It's not in us to treat you the way you treated us. Now let me cover a few things. I'm saying, let me get right up off in this thing. How silly are you to call me David Duke, to call me Hitler? I'm embarrassed. These guys are not nearly as handsome as I. I'm so hurt that you would call me a Nazi, call me a hater, call me a bigot, call me an anti-Semite. How could you compare us with the right-wing paramilitary white organizations and the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazi Party and Hitler and the KKK and all of them? How could you compare us with them? Let's take a look at history, because history is best qualified. History is best qualified to reward our research. If we know what happened yesterday, we can intelligently discuss today, because today is built on yesterday and tomorrow is built on today. History develops the springs and motives for human action and human activity. Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Yusuf bin Yaqanan, our grandmaster teachers and historians and venerable Mzee, or elders among us, teach us that history is a clock that people tell the time of day by. History is a compass that they use to find themselves. And Dr. Maulana Karenga, going through the divine and sacred utterances, studying in ancient Egypt or Kemet, and putting together what is called the Husia, the divine sacred utterances of our ancestors. When you study our heroes and our sheroes, our forefathers and our foremothers, when you study our history and our herstory in the Husia, we quote Even one day, when we look at history, even one day is a donation to eternity, and every hour is a contribution to the future. To the young sisters and young brothers of Black Student Unity on this Kent State University campus, you are making history right now, and what you are doing now will be the inspiration for our people down the wheel of time. You are walking, living, breathing history right now with all of your actions and all of your activities toward the liberation and salvation of your people. Let's look at it. David Duke, the Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Nazis, Hitler and these guys. You know these guys. So the whites in the audience, chest chill. Sit back, like, relax, guys. It won't be such a rough ride. Buckle your seat belts. If for any reason this auditorium becomes depressurized, guys, an oxygen mask will automatically fall from the ceiling. Please fasten the elastic band around tightly and firmly around your head and place it firmly over your mouth and nose and breathe freely and help the white person next to you. Everything will be all right. Everything is going to be fine. So everybody just sit back, relax, and have a good time. No one ever robbed David Duke, the Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan Brotherhood, Adolf Hitler, the Nazis. No one ever robbed them of their name, their language, their religion, their culture, their God, their folkways, their mores, and robbed them of the very power of their own being. No one has ever robbed them. No one has enslaved them for 400 years. How can you compare me with them if no one has ever robbed them? If no one has ever enslaved them? What in the heck are they screaming and hollering about today? These are questions that you must ask yourself. But you want to call it reverse discrimination. Gee whiz. We've got to protest. This guy's coming on campus. He's a hater. He's a hate mongerer. We can't take this thing sitting down, lying down. Oh, come on. Come on. To the young whites who are here, let us reason together. To the Jewish students who are here, let us reason together. Every day, in every way, every textbook, everything we touch, when we turn the channels of the television, when we go to the movie theaters, we have to watch your story. We have to watch your history. We are tuned into your pain. But who tunes in to the pain of the black man and the black woman? You still treat us like we are not supposed to hurt, like we are not supposed to have any pain. Shut up and listen here tonight. Shut up and listen here tonight. If someone comes into your home, bum rushes your house, and black boot stomps your door down, and comes in and puts their gat, their a 9 in one hand and a 40 in the other hand, put their gat or their 9 on everybody in the house, robs everybody, rapes everybody, then takes the wealth of the home of yours and parlays it into an empire. And one day you are strong enough to take their gun back from them and now stand over them and call them a raper and a robber to their face. The question is, does that make you a reverse robber and a reverse rapist? Does that make you a reverse robber and a reverse rapist? Let us reason together. Slave master beating the heck out of the slave, whipping the slave with the old cat o' nine tails, blood running down the slave's back, and the slave master dip his hand in salt and rub salt in the wound. If the slave is able to one day by God's grace, one day by God's power, able to take the whip from the slave master and start whipping the slave master's backside, does that make the slave a reverse slave master? Come on, let's reason together here tonight. To the young whites in the audience, this is going to be a history lesson for you. Black History 101. We want you to sit back and relax and take a careful look at what we're saying here tonight. No young Jewish student, no young Jewish student in this auditorium, in the balcony, in the other closed circuit auditoriums of Kent State University, no well-meaning young Jewish student of conscience would be pleased to have to study textbooks and be told that Adolf Hitler is a founding father of the country that they are now in. And to be told that he's the first president of the country that they find themselves in. I want you to reason with us tonight. Just reason with us. Don't be used by smart, crooked deceivers behind the scenes who will take a few sound bites here and there and take something out of context and whip up a frenzy and start a firestorm of controversy and throw you right in the middle of it. No, you must be critical thinkers today. You must analyze for yourselves. Let us, as the Bible says, reason together. Because history is no mystery. Black history in particular is no mystery. And to the blacks and the whites in the audience, you must study this history. Otherwise, you better check yourself before you rickety wreck yourself. Look at it for what it is worth today. When you look at it, you will find that George Washington, who? I know Susie's here. I know Bob, Bill, Jill, Heather. I know they're in the house, but it's all right to talk back to me, talk black to me. George Washington, who? George Washington is called one of the founding fathers of America. Is that true? Let me see the hands if George Washington is called a founding father. That's all I'm asking. Let me see your hands. George Washington, is he the first president of the United States? Let me see your hands if he's the first president of the United States. Did you know that white historians have recorded that George Washington, the first president of the United States, some of the other founding fathers, among them Thomas Jefferson, that they all owned slaves? They owned slaves. George Washington was also a notorious Indian murderer. How do you think we feel, young white students, young Jewish students, having to read history books that glorify the murderers of our foreparents, that glorify the enslavers of our people? What pain do you think this causes us? Nobody protests. No placards carried. No posters carried. No candlelight vigil. No meetings before the meeting so you can condemn. Nobody says take George Washington out of the history books. Take Thomas Jefferson out of the history books. But again, no Jewish student, as I appeal to you, would accept it if you had to handle these textbooks every day with Hitler as we do with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and others. George Washington not only owned slaves, George Washington, according to white historians, we've also got it from black historians, so you'll have it in black and white. George Washington raped the slave black women in the slave quarters. He misused the black woman in the slave quarters. Thomas Jefferson, another founding father of America, misused the black woman in the slave quarters of the plantations. History records, and it is no mystery because we're unraveling the mystery tonight. We're pulling the veil off of it tonight to see the light behind the veil. Raped black women, had babies after impregnating the black slave women on the plantation. These are great-great-great-grandmothers we're talking about. And wherever George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or one of the other founding fathers would impregnate a black woman, a slave woman on the plantation, they would sell their own babies into slavery. History records that old George and Tommy Jefferson would sell their own sons and daughters for barrels and kegs of syrup and molasses and whiskey. We weren't worth any more than a barrel of molasses to George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or a swig of whiskey to one of them. His own sons and daughters that he sired or fathered through a black woman after raping her on the plantation. But we have to accept this in the history of America. Abraham Lincoln, I want you to reason with us here tonight. Abraham Lincoln is said to have signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing the slaves. But when you study the etymological root of the term emancipation, you go to the etymological root emancipara. And emancipara means to free from one's hand, but not to free them indeed. In other words, they took the chains from our wrists and our ankles and put the chains on our brains. And so they didn't free us all together because we're still tied to the same slave master and the slave master's children to this very day. Let's look at it, brothers and sisters. History, black history, is no mystery. You better check yourself before you rickety wreck yourself. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. When you study them, can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? As quiet as it's kept. When you study the memoirs of Abraham Lincoln, the memoirs of Abraham Lincoln tell us and teach us in a most revealing way that Abraham Lincoln said, if I could save the youth, if I could save my people, if I could save my nation without freeing the slaves, I would go on and do it. Old Abe was honest. He said, if I could save the youth and not free the slaves, I would do it. The memoirs of Abraham Lincoln, according to history, tell us that Abraham Lincoln said, I, as any white man, would like to see white people in the superior position. This is the President of the United States of America. Mr. Lincoln went on to say, President Lincoln went on to say, that he never thought the two people would ever be able to get along in peace together. He said that blacks would never come up to the level of whites, and whites would never go down to the level of blacks. In other words, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, others of the founding fathers, Abraham Lincoln, the so-called signer of the Emancipation Proclamation, had an inordinate superiority complex. An inordinate superiority complex. And therefore now we who have been robbed of our names, our language, our religion, our culture, our God, our folkways, mores, norms, and the very power of our own being, we have an inordinate inferiority complex. They inordinately superior in their complex, and we with an inordinate inferiority complex. If the founding fathers owned slaves, if the founding fathers sold their own sons and daughters into slavery after raping black women, if they had this kind of attitude, we are taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable minister Louis Farrakhan that the circumstances surrounding the origin of the birth of a thing into the world determines the very nature of that thing, determines the very coding of that thing. And so it is no wonder that America is racist today. The Kerner Commission, almost 3 decades ago, a White House commission set up by the president, pointed out that America is 2 Americas. How many? This is the Kerner Commission out of Washington, D.C., out of the White House, set up by the President of the United States. 2 Americas, 1 black, 1 white, and went beyond the limits of Plessy versus Ferguson, not separate and unequal, separate but equal, but went beyond those limits. And the Kerner Commission said that America is 2 Americas, separate and, as I said earlier, unequal. Separate and unequal, and that the #1 problem in America today, according to the Presidential Commission out of the White House, is white racism. Now that was 30 years ago. The Kerner Commission reconvened decades later, today, and they determined that America as it was 30 years ago is still 2 Americas. 1 black, 1 white, separate and unequal, and that the #1 problem today, as it was yesterday, is still white racism in America. But let me go to your own Akron Beacon Journal. The Akron Beacon Journal, Sunday, February 13th, just a few hours ago, page A4. Blacks at the top. Where? Blacks at the top don't escape raw racism. New York judge and state controller are targets of racial indignities despite their positions of authority. By Yvette Blackman, Associated Press. Some people look at H. Carl McCall and George Bundy Smith and see paragons, high-powered players in New York's establishment, the state's chief fiscal officer and one of its top judges. The result, in the last year, these polished black men and Ivy Leaguers have suffered well-publicized racial indignities. McCall was called a nigger from Harlem by a town councilman. Smith was caricatured with racial stereotypes at a law clerk's dinner. The overtly racist laws proclaiming no blacks allowed are all gone, it appears, but McCall and Smith are proof that not only does racism survive, it plagues African Americans best and brightest, burdening them with the same racist stereotypes that oppress less successful blacks. It's like former New York City Mayor David Dinkins said, a white man with $1 million is a millionaire. A black man with $1 million is a nigger with $1 million. according to Ellis Cole's author of The Rage of a Privileged Class. But social scientists say the biases are ingrained in America, and they affect every black from the underclass to the upper crust. Quote, blacks in American culture, blackness in American culture is seen as a taint, as a pollutant, as something evil and bad, said Dr. Alvin Passant, a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School. Black people aren't seen as suspect individuals because they have black ancestry, because blackness is considered inferior, he said. Black people are seen as suspect individuals because they have black ancestry and because blackness is considered inferior. I'm almost finished with this. At any professional level, at which professional level? At any professional level, Dr. Alvin Passant, psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School, said, at any professional level, there's a burden of proof to show that blacks are just as good and just as competent. George Bundy Smith is a graduate of Phillips Academy, Yale University, and Yale Law School. He has been a judge since 1975. In 1992, he was promoted to the Court of Appeals, New York's highest court, but yet he was insulted. The travails of Smith and McCall are not surprising to many middle and upper class blacks. They still have trouble buying a home in some neighborhoods. They still find that they are eyed suspiciously in fine stores. Here the man is a judge, and he says when he goes into a fine store, the white folks follow him around and look at him like he's going to steal something. Other man is a comptroller. Even with the attendant privileges of success, Smith and McCall find it an ordeal to hire even a taxi cab in Manhattan. Some black politicians have gone so far as to ask their white aides to hail a cab for them. Downtown New York is hard. I live in New York. For a black man especially, and sometimes a black woman, just to get a taxi cab. So sometimes you have to touch the white person next to you and ask them, will you get me a cab, buddy? And they stop for the whites, but they pass right by the blacks. And blacks all over New York and all of the boroughs complain about it, as the Akron Beacon Journal is pointing out here. And that's the point to many whites. Any black is just another black to be treated with derision or fear, and McCall said that makes him angry. It keeps you mindful of the fact that you are never secure. You always have to do a little more, he said. Let's deal with this question of fear. I'm going to knock on everybody's door before we leave, so just sit back. Let's deal with this question of fear. Why were you so afraid of my coming on campus? What were you afraid of? I'm only going to come to a Black History celebration, but you were quoted in the New York Times as saying all of these terrible things. Most of you fools didn't even see the tape. You haven't even heard the tape. You don't know what I said. Some of you haven't even read the transcript to know what I said. Somebody used you. But before the evening is over, I will touch on some of those points so you will know what I said and why I said what I said. Oh, I didn't come to lighten up. I came to tighten up. Look at this history. Ohio, one of the most racist states in this entire region and area, with Ku Klux Klansmen everywhere. You know I'm not lying to you. Look at this state. You've got towns run by the Ku Klux Klan. Klan that we know about. You got other Klan that we don't know about. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, bless his soul, spoke at Howard University before making the transition into the realm of the Egungun. And as he spoke at Howard University, he said the Ku Klux Klan no longer just wears white sheets and robes and pillowcases, but the Ku Klux Klan, he says, now wear blue uniforms. They are policemen. He said they now wear black robes and they sit on the judge's bench. Judge Bruce Wright of the Supreme Court of New York City, in his book, Black Robes, White Justice. Black Robes, White Justice. Judge of the Supreme Court, Bruce Wright out of New York, went on to point out the injustice inherent in the criminal justice system of white America. Why do I call it a criminal justice system? Because criminals established this government called the United States of America, and I can prove it before I leave out of here tonight. The nerve of you to call me a hater. The nerve of you to call me a racist. The nerve of you to call me an anti-Semite. Will the real hate monger please fess up? Please fess up. Let's look at this thing and analyze it, everybody, all right? You saw all the news reporters here, right? Most of them are gone, right? The guys were disappointed. The guys came here to a hate meeting and we having a love meeting. And they got disappointed. Or they wanted to know what Khallid had to say about Louis Farrakhan. But when I say he's my spiritual father, my leader, my teacher, my guide, and I submit to his discipline, they say, oh, we ain't got no story. We out of here, guys. I thought the guy was going to split. We've given him enough media and stuff for him to go on his own. No, it's not in me. Not in me. We are reliving a 30-year history. It happened 30 years ago between the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable Elijah Muhammad's spiritual son, Minister Malcolm X. El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Brother Omar Wali. And we ultimately saw a split. We remember the words of Brother Malcolm that he spoke when he spoke at Manhattan Center on December the 1st, just a few hours after my famous speech at King College, November the 29th, 30 years later. Malcolm in his subject, God's judgment against white America. During the question and answer period, a smart, crooked deceiver jumped up to put one over on the people. Malcolm and all of the ministers had been told to make no mention of the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the President of the United States. Somehow, and I've agonized over it, most of us were not even born, many of us too young to even know what was going on. But as we studied the history, I have agonized much over that moment, over that second. What happened to Malcolm? Malcolm bold, Malcolm courageous, Malcolm fiery, Malcolm full of the pain and the anger of the masses of our people, expressing that pain and that anger like nobody could do it during that time. Malcolm said that John Fitzgerald Kennedy's death, his assassination, was a case of the chickens coming home to roost. He said chickens coming home to roost never made me sad, always made me glad. And so Malcolm, not following the orders of his teacher, who had warned him, clashed with his teacher in the public. And his teacher had to condemn his remarks and had to suspend Malcolm from the ministry as I was suspended 30 years later. Malcolm had to be disciplined, and I had to be disciplined today. The enemy wants to see division. The enemy wants to see a split. How is Khallid taking this? I'm a soldier. I'm a professional soldier. That's what I am. And I follow a divine chain of command. And there is no split, there is no division. 30 years later, what happened between Elijah and Malcolm, now Farrakhan and Khallid. Farrakhan and Khallid will put a positive period behind the history of Elijah and Malcolm. No split, no division here. Sorry to disappoint you guys. Gee whiz. Sorry. Let's go back at this. We got just a little bit more that we must cover. I must build the case here tonight and cover all of these points so that you will understand why they are so afraid. They don't want you to know the truth. They want you to think that we always were jungle bunnies, buck naked, swinging through the palm trees, kicking coconuts around, eating bananas, rings in our nose, bones in our nose, hollering ooga booga. And kimosabi, that's later on. That's our red brother and our red sister. What they did to them, that's all family, it's all in the family. Bawana Jim, Tarzan, they want us to believe all of this madness. We civilized you guys. To the young whites who are here, you look down on the blacks who are here in a condescending way because the books in your libraries, the books in your libraries tell you that these people, these little black ones here, have made no contribution whatsoever. Not only did we make the contribution, but we contributed you. You wouldn't even be here if it wouldn't be for us. For we are your mother and we are your fathers. We are the people who are from everlasting to everlasting. Before us there were none, and after us there will be no more. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Before us there were none, and after us there will be no more. The anthropologist Dr. Margaret Mead, the anthropologist Dr. L.S.B. Leakey, the anthropologist Dr. Richard Leakey, they let it leak out. They went out in the search of the origin of man and the search for the origin of woman, and they went into East Africa, found the remains of a black one that represented over 1,750,000 years of existence on our planet. Went back and found the remains of another black one that represented over 2 million years of existence, and found out that even that one had a mom and a daddy. Went back and found another black one that represented over 3 million years of existence on our planet. They can't find the birth record of the black man and the black woman. We are before Alpha and after Omega. We are the Ancient of Days. All praise is due to Allah. You don't have to throw these temper tantrums. You don't have to act so silly. Let's sit down and dialogue. Let's sit down and reason. Let us discuss these issues. If it's a theological question, let's discuss it in an academic environment. Bring us your best minds. I was reading the Akron Beacon Journal again. I eased into town yesterday. Nobody knew how I came to town. I didn't trust nobody, not even the security. I came in under disguise, incognito. And I started reading everything I could get my hands on. This Akron Beacon Journal is something. Sunday, February 13th, page 815. Afrocentrism can't teach most important lessons. Mona Sharon, bless her heart, she attacks Afrocentricity. Why would you attack Afrocentricity? What's the matter with you white folks? You don't want to let the world know that we have scholarship. You don't want to let the world know that we gave you music, we gave you mathematics, we gave you medicine, we gave you morality, we gave you civilization, we gave you chemistry, biology, physics. You were crawling around on your all fours in the caves and hills of Europe, a caveman and a cavewoman. There it is. There it is. You were crawling around on your all fours in the caves and hills of Europe, eating juniper roots and eating each other. As Dr. John Henry Clark, as Dr. Yusuf bin Yaqanan, as the great historians among us point out, that before the white man ever had a house with a window or ever knew what a shoe was, we had great civilizations, great empires. If you say Afrocentrism is a lie, then bring us your best minds. Bring us the best scholars you got, and let's sit down and debate this. If you don't want to sit down and dialogue, let's go at it. Otherwise, step off, boy. Step off. You can't hide behind a newspaper. You can't hide behind a television camera. You can't hide behind a camera. You can't hide behind a placard. You can't hide behind a banner. You can't hide behind a candlelight vigil. You got to come on out on Front Street. If we're lying, show us where we're lying. And we will accept what you say if you can show us where we're lying. Want to attack us for now going after our history, after you've robbed us of a knowledge of self, telling us about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and the boys. They are the fathers of Western philosophy. Oh, please. This is not about hatred. This is about history. Unraveling the mystery of the history that you have hidden from us behind a veil. You put it in a tomb and rolled a stone in front of the tomb. And for 3 days, representing 310 years of chattel slavery, you've kept us in the dark, in a tomb. After you hung us on a cross, nailed our hands, hands that used to build pyramids, hands that used to shape and sculpt the Sphinx, nailed our feet, crossed our feet, and nailed our feet, pierced us in the side, and put a crown of ignorance on our head. Planet Earth is 196,940,000 square miles. So teaches the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, I'm hurt. I've been suspended as minister, suspended from national assistant, suspended from national spokesman or representative. But I'm a brother. I like the way brother said, brother cop. That's the only title I need is brother. Because the etymological root of brother is other. Your brother, your sister, your brother is your other self. Is an extension, the divine extension of you. I just want to serve in that way as your brother. So, though you hope for something else, when we dig at it and search and research and look beyond the pain and look at the gain, that Almighty God is guiding this thing today. When we do that, then we're on the right road and nobody can stop us. Planet Earth is 196 million 940,000 square miles. So teaches the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and my teacher and spiritual father, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. 57,255,000 square miles of land coming up out of 139,685,000 square miles of water on a planet that weighs 6 sextillion tons. As it spins and moves and rotates on its own axis at the terrific speed of 1,037 1/3 miles per hour every 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 46 seconds, as it makes its way around the sun every 365 1/4 days. But your forefathers, black man and black woman, your foremothers, black man and black woman, ain't got nothing to do with hatred, ain't got nothing to do with bigotry, ain't got nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It's got to do with unraveling the mysteries of the history that has been hidden, and they've kept us in a cave and kept a stone in front of the cave and kept guards there to make sure that every trace of light would not enter, no trace of light would enter into the slave's mind. But from the balances of our brain and with the span of our hand, our ancestors, our forefathers and foremothers could determine for that area geographically center and build the pyramids. And the white man calls it one of the wonders of the world, which means in spite of his great centers and schools of architecture, in spite of his great schools of engineering, he calls the pyramids one of the wonders of the world, which means that he's still wondering how we were able to do it. You are the father and mother. You are the father and mother of all of these disciplines and all of these sciences. And let me advance a term here tonight. Since we're throwing around terms, anti-Kimite and anti-Semitism and anti-Semite, I want to advance the term, you have anti-Semite and anti-Semitism. I want to advance the term anti-Kimite and anti-Kimitism. It is called Egypt, but Egypt is the name given by the white Greeks. Isn't it interesting? Everywhere white people go, they always kick the door down. They always change the name of the nation. They always corrupt the morals of the people. And before you know it, they put whatever name on that land that they want to put on that land. That is arrogant. It's not just ethnocentric, it's extremely inordinately egocentric. So they call that land Egypt, but that's the white name. Egypt, that's the Greek name. But the true name, when you study the divine sacred utterances, when you study what they call the hieroglyphics, but what our ancestors call the Meduneter. The what? The what? When you study the Meduneter, you will find that the true name for Egypt, not the white name, not the Greek name, but the true name for Egypt is Kemet. Kemet. And the people of Kemet are the Kemites. And the hieroglyph or the Meduneter symbol for Kemet is a black charred burnt piece of coal or a black charred piece of wood representing the black and the burnt skinned people of Ethiopia or Ethiopia, or what is now in another area of that region called Egypt. So if the true name for Egypt is Kemet, the land of the black and the burnt skinned people, when you attack us this way, when you send death threats to our young sisters, when you threaten them just for bringing a speaker on campus, when you become plagiarists before the world, stealing from us, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, history points out, read Dr. George G.M. James that the Beacon Journal talked about in Stolen Legacy, read Dr. Malefi Asante, read Dr. Maulana Karenga, read Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, read Dr. Professor Runoko Rashidi, Professor James Small, read Dr. Leonard Jeffries, read Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, read Dr. Sekhmet, read Dr. Tamari Bridges, read the scholars of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, Read Dr. Jake Carruthers. Read Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Read the scholars of the black nation who are ready to do battle and do war anytime you're ready to do battle and war. Read them. And I say before all of you, I'm ready to do battle anytime. I'm a truth terrorist. I'm a black history hitman. I'm a knowledge gangster. What I'm saying, straight up, I'm a knowledge gangster, a truth terrorist, a history of black hitman. I gotta be a roughneck. Gotta be a roughneck. I don't know no other way. So when you come on with the come on, I make sure you get on. It's not about hate, but you are hateful in your hearts because you don't want the chosen of God to wake up. You don't want the stone to be rolled away. You don't want the mystery to be unfolded.